Sometimes normal chord progressions depress me. By normal progressions, I mean chord progressions that use chords that are all in the same key, or diatonic. Particularly these chords: 1, 4, 5, 6. Don't get me wrong, these are great chords, and so much great music is built using them. But sometimes they have the effect of hypnotizing me into a certain mood or emotion that after a certain amount of time leaves me feeling one-dimensional. And I find that feeling to be kind of a bummer. Here's what I like to do to break out of this. It uses a concept I call the wormhole method, where we take one chord and then we teleport through a wormhole to another completely different, unrelated, perhaps even random chord. We're not worried about key, we're not worried about scale, we're not worried about anything. We're just going from one place to another. This gives us an element of unpredictability. We're throwing a wrench into the spokes of this harmonic wheel. To me, that's what keeps it interesting. It's what keeps it surprising. There is just enough chaos involved to keep from getting hypnotized the way those other chord progressions hypnotize me. It keeps my musical antenna on alert as I'm listening. It's an interesting sensation. Let's build a chord progression that goes back and forth between C minor 11 and A flat minor 11. First, let's construct the chords, starting with C minor 11, built using the notes of the C minor scale. The scale has 7 notes, but when building extended chords, like a minor 11th chord, we need to conceive of the scale in 2 octaves, or 14 notes. Start with the first note, the root, and skip a note until you reach 11. This is how you can build any minor 11 chord. Let's see C minor 11 on the piano roll. Now let's build the chord on the other side of our wormhole, A flat minor 11. We will do the exact same thing, except instead of the notes of C minor, we will use the notes of A flat minor. If we put these 2 chords back to back, as they are now, it's going to be pretty clunky. And it's also going to make it so that the A flat minor chord is going to be muddy, because it's a bit too low. Let's fix this by voicing these chords in a flattering way. A chord voicing is a specific and unique arrangement of the notes of a chord. We can shift notes up or down by an octave, double some of the notes so that they happen in multiple octaves, or even omit certain notes. When you voice a chord, it's your chance to make the chord your own. The versions of the chords we have built so far are like the blueprint of the chord. Now, we get to actually build them into something musical. Starting with C minor 11, let's move the 3rd, E flat, up an octave, so that it is right next to D, the 9th. This is really nice because now these 3 notes are right next to one another: D, E flat, and F, the 9th, minor 3rd, and 11th. And in fact, let's continue in this direction by moving G up an octave as well, giving us 4 notes shoulder to shoulder: D, E flat, F, and G, the 9th, minor 3rd, 11th, and 5th. Now, let's double a couple of the notes. Let's double B flat, the 7th, an octave higher. And let's do the same thing with D, the 9th. I'm cool with this voicing for C minor 11. Now we have a direction. I want the A flat minor chord to flow smoothly from this C minor 11 voicing, and I want the clusters of notes to be carried over as much as possible. I want a high concentration of notes in this region, so let's move the 3rd, the 5th, and 7th up an octave. Let's complete the cluster zone here by doubling the 9th, B flat, an octave higher. We are teleporting from C minor 11 to A flat minor 11, but since we are keeping everything in this tight octave range between B flat and B flat, the motion is smooth. It doesn't sound like a jagged shift. Check it out. Let's hear it again. In order to prevent the chord progression from having a seasickness kind of effect as it goes back and forth, let's create another voicing for each chord. These next two voicings make use of the same notes that we have already been working with in each of the two chords, just arranged differently. The guiding light for me when creating these voicings is the top note melody that results across the entire progression. These four notes, D, B flat, F, E flat. Although spanning the C minor 11 and A flat minor 11 chords, they are all important notes of C minor 11 and the C minor scale. D is the ninth of C minor. B flat is the ninth of A flat minor, but also the seventh of C minor. F is the 11th of C minor, and E flat is the fifth of A flat minor, but also the minor third of C minor. By highlighting these four notes, it strengthens the C minor flavor of the overall progression, and it folds the A flat minor 11 teleportation into the background, just slightly. When using this wormhole method, this is the kind of thing to look for. Ways to de-emphasize the potentially jagged shifts between disconnected harmonic zones. This chord progression is like a story of two characters who are very different and from completely different backgrounds, who have to go on a long journey or road trip together. The interest in narrative comes from seeing how their relationship will evolve and how they will get along as they encounter different situations together. On second thought, I want to extend the progression with 4 more voicings. Same chords, but 2 more voicings per chord. Since these C minor 11 voicings don't have the minor third, they are now C9 sus4 voicings. Let's give things some movement. Let's add syncopation, rhythms that emphasize the in-between moments. We'll shift every chord other than the first one so that it plays on the and of 4, or in other words, on the 8th note in between beats 4 and 1. So that we can really feel this syncopation, let's get a kick playing on all 4 quarter notes to anchor the pulse. Let's get this drum groove fully going here. I will be using my drum kit Nimble. You can get a copy on my website, jaronlopez.com. The link's below. Let's get the ride cymbal going with quarter notes. And notice this 4th quarter note is at a slightly lower volume and velocity level. The first 3 are at a velocity level of 100, and the 4th is at 75. This will come into focus in a bit. I love that ride sound. I recorded the cymbal samples with a sizzle chain, which gives it that shimmering kind of sound. Surprisingly, there are not that many sizzle or riveted cymbal samples out there in multi-sample format. Now let's add 8th notes to the ride cymbal and check out the velocities of these notes. Velocities are really what bring drum patterns to life. The first 3 8th notes are at a velocity value of 50, and the last one is 100. This last one, the and of 4, is the rhythmic point where our chords change. They are where we added syncopation, or emphasized the in-between notes. That is why on beat 4, the velocity is slightly lower at 75. And then on the and of 4, it is accented at 100 to reinforce this rhythmic moment and make it so that our drummer is synced up and locked in with what our piano player is playing. For the last piece of the ride cymbal puzzle, let's add 16th notes, just 3 of them, to keep the groove rolling forward. We'll put 1 on the of beat 1, at the lowest velocity level of 25. We want low velocities and therefore low volumes because these notes are the chatter, the syllables that you feel more than you hear. Next, we'll mirror this but on beat 3, on the of 3. And the third and final one will go on the of 4. Now, let's add offbeat hi-hats on the and of all 4 beats, and all with a velocity value of 50, so pretty quiet. And we'll add 2 more on the E of beats 3 and 4 with a velocity value of 25, ghosting into the main hi-hat energy on the and of each beat. Now to start dialing in the house vibe. Let's put the rim on the backbeat, which is beats 2 and 4. And we'll use the max velocity value, 127, because this is the hand clapping element, a main groove element. We want it to come through strong. Now, let's add a little bit of pepper with some ghost notes on the snare drum. At this point, the pattern is pretty dense, so I just want the snares to fill in the gaps and accentuate choice moments. Let's start with 1 on the E of beat 1. This one is filling a gap in the pattern. There's nothing else going on here. I want it to be perceived but felt more than heard, so we'll give it a velocity value of 25. Then we'll put 1 on the of beat 3. This one is leading into the strong backbeat in the rim, so I want this one to be more prominent. I want its energy to feel like part of the buildup into the backbeat. We'll make the velocity value 75. The next one will go on the E of beat 4, where there is already that quiet hi-hat note. I want this snare to blend in with that hi-hat note, so I'm going to give this ghost note a velocity value of 10. Super quiet. Definitely felt more than heard, and honestly, barely felt. But these are the details and subtleties that take things to another level. And the last one is going to go on the of beat 4. If you only put a single ghost note in your pattern, the very last 16th note of the bar is a good choice. Chances are it will help give the pattern some momentum as it cycles back around. That's what we're doing here, and we'll give it a velocity value of 25. Okay, now for perhaps the most important rhythmic element, the kick. In order to make this pattern work in the kick, we'll need to be thinking in at least 2 bars at a time. Earlier, we already established our quarter note pattern, but let's lock this in with what is happening in the piano. We need to get the kick to emphasize our syncopation on the and of 4. So we'll move the kick from beat 1 of bar 2 to the and of 4 of bar 1. This is a strong moment where the rest of the band plays as well, so we want at least the same velocity value of 100. Now, there is a bit too large of a gap here. It feels awkward. Let's put another kick in this space, on the and of 1. The and of 1 is a potentially strange place to put a kick drum in a house track, so let's ease into it with a ghost kick right before on the E of 1 and use a velocity of 25. Again, felt more than heard. We continue to have chords playing on the and of beat 4 in every bar, so let's add a kick here to support that rhythm. In bar 2, to make this additional syncopated kick a tiny bit more clear, let's give the kick on beat 4 a velocity value of 90. To my ears, after 8 bars of syncopation, 8 bars is the length of our entire chord progression, the first chord on the first bar needs a little extra support because it is the only chord that is on the downbeat, directly on beat 1. To help it along, let's add an additional kick on the and of beat 1. And to make it so that it hangs in between the strength of beats 1 and 2, let's give it a velocity value of 75. Let's check it out with the full chord progression. And as we do, let's add another element of syncopation. For the first 3 chords, I'm going to repeat the chord on the and of 3. The bass line is simple but tasty. It secures the roots of each chord. It then introduces E flat over both chords, on the of beat 3 in bar 1, and on the and of beat 3 in bar 2. The nice thing here is that E flat is the minor third of C minor 11 and the 5th of A flat minor 11. So by making repeated use of this tone, we are gluing the 2 mostly unrelated chords together. This is another aspect of how to make this wormhole concept come to life. Using that same idea, we'll add B flat on the of beat 3 in bar 2. B flat is the 9th of A flat minor 11 and the 7th of C minor 11. So again, this tone reinforces the commonality between the 2 unrelated chords and keys and helps to glue the whole progression together. Let's see how it all comes together while adding some melodic embellishments in the piano part. If you want a full toolkit that gives you instant access to these kinds of chords, drum patterns, bass lines, and melodies, then check out Vible Volume 1. Or if you want to learn how to bring these kinds of ideas and approaches into your music, then check out the Society of Vibe. You'll find the links below. Until next time, farewell.